So I have the pleasure of taking us in a little bit different direction, and I've heard some questions that I think hopefully this panel will help bring some information to light, because we're going to now look at, we've been looking at it maybe from the sky level. Now we want to look at it on the ground, how it's impacting our neighborhoods and the consumers and the people who are actually living in these opportunity zones. And what resources can we bring, to help help them, number one, build wealth and transition, as these areas grow and transition. Monique talked about the University Corridor and some of the transition that needs to take place there with the motel and things that are happening there. But how do we impact the lives of the people who are currently living in these opportunity zones? And so I am so delighted to bring back and to share with you, I don't know if this is her first visit to Lafayette, but I hope it won't be her last. But Michelle Corson, her bio is in your folder, but she is the leader and the brains behind On the Road Lending. And so Michelle, if you will join us, and then we also have my partner in crime again, Linda Gabriel, who is going to talk to us about the FDIC Adult Money Smart programs and the resources that the FDIC and their financial education can bring to these neighborhoods. So if you guys can take your seats and we'll get started. You can stand or sit, whatever you'd rather stand. Then I am. You're first. No, she's first. Michelle was first, but that's okay.
Okay. I'll have to fight hers. Oh, I don't have Michelle's presentation. Yeah, it wasn't in my email.
Okay, well, we'll leave
Do
it then.
you have it on PowerPoint?
I do. I have a Mac with me. So.
I should be able to load it.
Oh, okay, so now Linda's first. Tell me what to do.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so get us back to Linda.
Here we go.
Well, okay. So we've talked about opportunity zones, how to invest, how to do all of this stuff here. Now I'd like to talk to you about, once all of that is done to the community, how do we infiltrate the communities, the people on the ground, to make sure that they are financially sound? So back in 2001, long before I came into community development, FDIC created the Money Smart program. So the Money Smart program, if you're familiar with it, has been around that long. We have trained more than 3 million people on this Money Smart program. What I'm going to talk to you about today is the updated program that we have, and it was recently updated in 2018. So again, updated in 2018. It was launched this fall. And so for me, and for many of my partners at the FDIC, this is the first time we're actually bringing it out in the Dallas region for some of us. So the rationale behind the update includes, we included new topics that we thought was necessary for the financial state that we're in now, right? And so we've added some new topics there. We made the program not just a presentation type, it's more participatory. So as you sit in these classes, you also have to participate in the information that's being put out there. And we've updated the graphics. The graphics were, they were really nice, but a little outdated. And so we've done some work on the graphics as well. Next slide. So the modules for the 2018 Money Smart program, for the previous program, we only had 10. Now we have 14 modules. Some of the new ones is your money and value influences, making housing decisions. The disaster financial preparation and recovery has been greatly updated to match some of the issues that we find happening along the coast. Using credit cards. That is, it's not only a module telling you how to use credit cards, but why you should or should not be using credit cards and how to manage those credit cards. Protecting your identity and other assets. How do you protect yourself? You're just using credit cards anywhere and everywhere. And so that's another module that's in depth about protecting yourself. And so what we're looking at here are the components. You see these three components. It's the participant guide, the instructor guide, and PowerPoint slides. Each one of those are contained within each module. So you will find something specific. It's the same structure, but it's for each of the 14 modules that we just looked at previously. So yes, it's still Money Smart. We've had some updates, but it's still unbiased. It's still done by some qualified individuals. We have taken some of the feedback we have gotten from both nonprofits and our financial institutions and incorporated it into the new Money Smart because they were the ones on the ground using it. And so we're like, okay, if they're using it, let's take their information, put it in here, and make this better. It's still flexible, and most importantly, it is free. It is free for you to use it. It's free for the training. There are trainings we come out and do. There are online trainings. So everything that is offered via Money Smart by FDIC is free. And I stress that because if anyone is inviting you to a Money Smart class and charging you $10 to enter, you shouldn't be paying $10 to enter a class. We know the community that is most in need of this information, and we don't want to put an additional financial burden on them and saying, oh, you know, you can pay $10 and get a free lunch. How about I get a free lunch and pay no dollars? That's what we want, right? So, yes, it is still developed and supported by FDIC. This is one of our curriculums that is not co-written by another agency. While we have no problems with that, this is something FDIC started many, many years ago, and for now, we still are the only person that's putting this, program out. So what's new? It's expanded, and the content is new. You will find the content that's in the Money Smart program that actually talks to your everyday lives. It's not a hypothetical pie in the sky kind of thing. It's things that you are actually dealing with or your clients are actually dealing with right now. The 14 modules are divided. In the old Money Smart, they could be divided, but we didn't divide them. Now it's distinctively divided. And so one of the reasons we did that is so that if there's one portion of that module that your clients need, you don't have to teach the whole program to get that. You can only teach that specific part of the modules to get the point across. And another thing about it is that if you have 4 different modules and there's 4 parts of a module that you want to teach, you can still teach those 4 different parts and not compromise the integrity of the program. So some examples of the new and expanded topics. So what influences your financial decision? That's module 1. That talks about, are you living, you know, one of the 2018 terms is living your best life. Well, living your best life is not living your neighbor's best life. It's living within the means of what you can and cannot afford. And so when we talk about influencing financial decisions, what's influencing your decision that's causing you to remain in debt, right? Are you living someone else's best life? Because technically that's not your best life, right? So what are those decisions that influences that? And trying to move you back to your center where you can become financially sound. Matching needs with financial products and servicing. That means finding that financial institution that is a full service for you. Not if you're making deposits there, do you have a relationship with the people in that financial institution? You need to get to know the people at the bank in which you put your money. I mean, I want to know who's keeping my money, and I'm a regulator, so I want to know who's keeping my money. And so it's up to the individual to build those relationships, but we give you examples on how that could be done. How to read your pay statement. Got a pay statement, but you don't know how to read it. We're here for you. We have information on how to read your pay statement. That sounds like, oh, who Really? No, it happens. People, there, there's all these deductions from your pay statement, and you have no idea what it's for or where it's going. And so we have that information in there. The ABLE account, so that's specifically about people with disabilities. This curriculum here is geared towards also people with disabilities, as opposed to before we had to make it that way. Now it's geared toward people with disabilities as well. And then a more in-depth look at credit and credit reports. People say, who is it that they say? I forgot this financial guy, but they said he says that credit is not important. Well, if you're working class, credit is important. And you need to understand that unless you have money to pay cash for everything, right, then your credit report tells your story, your financial story. So yes, credit is important, and you need to understand how to read your credit report. How debt works, right? So you say, oh, well, I'm paying all of my bills on time, but I can't get a home, I can't get that. What are your ratios looking like? You need to know that maybe you're spending, well, you already know you're spending more money than you make, but you don't understand how that affects you overall. So we talk about that. Making housing decisions. Everybody is not ready to own a home. Sometimes renting is an option, and you need to know that it's okay to rent if that's where you are financially. Reading rental agreements and rental insurance. You're renting an apartment, all of your fancy things are in there, and it burns down, and you're looking at the apartment complex to pay for your furniture. Not going to happen. So we've added that. That's an add to the Money Smart. And most importantly, that mobile banking. We want to do it on our phones, our laptops. We don't want to go into the institutions. And so we've added some ways, some safe ways to make sure that your clients and our clients understand exactly how that's done. This is just a list of the different types of training methods. There's not a method I think you can think of that Money Smart would not be applicable for. You can use it in any training method you want, whatever works for the group. And you need to know the individuals that you are presenting this information to, what works best for them. Are they the group that likes brainstorming? Are they a little shy and don't want that kind of information? And so you have to do maybe different types of scenarios. Or is it a group? One of my favorite is the debate groups, because, I know this. And so I think debating helps you understand or learn more. Well, you think, oh, I got this down, but we can always learn more, right? So this is just a list of training groups. And this is designed to work for everyone. 508 section is talking about people with disabilities. You don't have a client that could not use this Money Smart program and learn something from it. It is written that way, it is designed that way, because we know the individuals that we are dealing with, and the main goal is to move them from underbanked or unbanked to banked. We want them to have a relationship with a financial institution, because if they don't have a relationship with a financial institution, we know where they're going, and we don't want that, right? The money they're paying to cash a check and all of that other stuff could be circumvented if they had a working relationship with a financial institution. And this is what the cover of the new Money Smart module looks like. It's a little more colorful, a little more inviting than what we had before. I think the one we had before, you actually knew you were going to be talking about money. And while it's very important, it's not always a topic we want to tackle, because, it's like, well, I don't want to talk about that today. Well, today or tomorrow, but we have to talk about it. So this is what the new cover of the Money Smart program looks like. It has been launched. It is online. You can download it. We do not have CDs available. Initially, they said they were not doing CDs. Well, they need to do CDs. And, while we're the FDIC and we are fabulous, we're still government, so it takes time. So y'all just wait on these CDs to be released, and I promise you we will get them in your hands. And so this is something totally new that was not part of the original Money Smart. It's scenarios for financial inclusion. Sometimes instructors are a little timid, and this is just additional information to make them comfortable with the subject. Because oftentimes even your instructors are not where they want to be financially. So they feel some kind of way about presenting before a group. So this provides them with additional information where they too can learn while presenting. So the English version has been launched. Bear with us, we're working on all the other languages, and we'll get those out to you. Yeah, 2019 sounds good, but 2020 is just around the corner, so let's just see. But I know this, it's coming, okay? Go ahead. And thank you. This is my contact information, and we'll be here to answer any additional questions.
I'm gonna load the other slide. Yeah.
All right, thank you. So did we get you set up?
I will. I am opening it right now.
Not
Well,
rolling.
I've known her long enough that I know she's very capable of talking without it, but I'm sure she has some visuals that will help us.
The other one, OTRL overview deck.
Oh, this one. Okay. There you go.
There we go.
Yay, okay.
Okay. All right. Well, hello. Good afternoon. First of all, I want to apologize. We have auditors in our office, and since you guys are, I think there's a lot of bankers here, you know the importance of that. We have to get back to Dallas, so we're going to have to leave right after this section. But I will leave cards with Scarlett and Linda for me and my colleague, Shaylin Scott, over here in case you're interested in what we have to say. Scarlett gives me a hard time pretty routinely that when we expanded our company outside of Texas, we jumped over Louisiana and we went to Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia. So I think she had ulterior motives to get me here today to be so dazzled by all of you that we would correct our mistake, which sounds like we need to do that. Yes. And I also want to thank the presentations right before us because they kind of teed up our topic a little bit, which was good, especially the conversation about lack of transportation. So we're going to talk about that just a little bit and tell you what we're doing. This is a little bit off topic for what the subject of this conference is about. We are actually in the process of buying a building right now, so I've been looking at opportunity zones in Dallas where we can move our facility. And I haven't found anything yet that works for us, but we are working on a new markets tax credit strategy. But our organization, On the Road Lending, is all about transportation. This is a huge issue that a lot of people don't even know exists. Most of us are fortunate enough in this room that we probably all have a car that takes us wherever we need to go. And it fits so seamlessly into our lives that we don't even notice how important it is to our daily lives. So I wanted to start off and show you some information about a client that we had. This is a real client, year one, when we got started about 6 years ago. This was her beginning, but thankfully this was not her ending. Tiffany was sentenced to 40 years in prison when she was 19 years old. She served half of that term. And when she got out, she discovered that life on the outside was not really much easier for her than life on the inside was. It was a struggle just to figure out how to survive. An organization in Dallas helped her, and they got her a temporary job at a company that has a second chance program for former offenders. And she loved what she did, and she was really, really good at it. But she was at risk of losing this job because of one simple thing. She did not have a way to get there reliably. So she was late, and her afternoons were all spent trying to figure out how she was going to get home for the day. Fortunately, when she made it to us, we got her into a car loan that changed her life. That temporary job became a permanent job, and then she got a raise, and then she got a promotion, and then she was promoted to running a department. She got married, she bought a house. All of these outcomes for someone who was a disposable person ended up changing as a function of just helping her get a car. So her outcomes were amazing. I don't think a lot of people know that the number one reason that people lose their jobs is lack of reliable transportation. It's this sleeper issue that's out there. So we work with all kinds of clients, not just people who were formerly incarcerated, but they are all predominantly low to moderate income people, the kind of people that opportunity zones were intended to help, trying to help them to find a way to access employment and live a better life. This is a last mile problem. Getting ahead requires transportation. We could give people job skills training, but if they can't get to that job, it's all for naught. Good jobs are far from home almost everywhere, in almost every community out there. We've been asked to expand our program all across the country, including in places that might surprise you, like New York City and Chicago and San Francisco, places that seem to have a pretty robust mass transit system. Mass transit doesn't reach all of the jobs. In Dallas, where I live, I was surprised to learn when I got this started, we actually have the largest mass transit system in North America in terms of linear light rail miles, and 3% of our population uses it. Why is that? Because it accesses 14.7% of the jobs in our community. You can't get there. If you have poor credit, as Linda was saying, it makes everything more expensive, and it's very hard to buy a car if you have poor credit. Predatory lending, I don't think I have to talk about what this is all about. It is a vast and growing market. Just the subprime auto lending business alone is $300 billion nationally. So our theory of change, why does any of this matter? What are we trying to do about it? If we can help someone have an affordable loan on a really good car, and this is a key, and provide them with financial education, Money Smart is a great program, it will lead to economic mobility for people. And we've seen this, and it has been borne out in our work. So what is our business model? We are recycling capital for social good. I've heard the terms out here, social investments. We have a social purpose private equity fund that we have created. It is a community development finance institution. We pay a small return to our investors with the expectation that that capital can be used for a really good social purpose and recycled using impact investment. No, next slide, please. Okay. So our process to build a sustainable business is that we make character-based loans to low to moderate income people. When they pay their car payment to us, it provides us with a revenue stream that we can use to pay a small return to our investors and provides some ability for us to cover some of our costs. We're still grant dependent today, but we're working towards that. The excess principal gets reinvested into new loans. So $100 million or whatever the number is can get recycled over and over and over again. We have some really great blue chip partners that we've put together over the last 5 or 6 years since we got started. Toyota, State Farm, Interstate Batteries, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, Bank of Texas. We're constantly adding to our group of partners on a daily basis. So our progress was really slow in the beginning. We made 16 loans in year 1, and we improved in year 2 because we made 17 loans that year. It was such a slow start, and I would go talk to people about transportation and trying to raise money and trying to get them excited about what we were doing, and they looked at me like I had 3 heads, so it took a long time to begin. But we've put together some major partnerships in the past 6 to 12 months that have really put us on the path of a lot of growth. Our default rate is very, very low. This is remarkable because our clients that we work with have currently got an average credit score of 485. These are deep subprime borrowers, and they are routinely charged 24, 25% in the marketplace, and I understand that. They're high risk. They require some hand-holding to help them to get to the next level. But we have shown that a credit score is not the only predictor of whether someone can be responsible in handling their money. I attribute this low rate to a couple of things in particular. One is the financial education component is really critically important. People have not been taught how to manage their money, and it doesn't matter what social economic strata you're in. Nobody likes to talk about this with their kids. It's hard. The other thing is that we're getting people into the right kind of car. So this is also very important. Next slide. Our clients are transportation challenged, so we don't ask them to come to our office and sit across the table from somebody to have financial education. And now that we've expanded into 3 other states, it's even more that way. So we do remote service delivery. Our coaches are actually based in New England, and we don't serve that area either, by the way. We have employees there, but we're not up there. So currently serving Texas, Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia, and to be amended to include Louisiana soon. Social returns. This is important. We're helping people get better jobs, a la Tiffany and everyone else. Improved education opportunities. You can go to school. You can get your kids to school. It's really hard to work full-time and go to school at night. It's what I did for 8 years to put myself through school, and it makes for a long day. It's not easy. This is a healthcare initiative. So all the guys that were just presenting, less stress, ability to get good food, ability to see a doctor. This is a healthcare initiative for sure. We're also improving air quality, which we'll come to, and the gift of more time. Next. Air quality. I don't know whether this is a problem in Louisiana or not, but it is in Texas where I'm based. We do not comply with federal air quality standards. We have terrible air pollution. The cars that we're getting people into are typically a 2 to 3 year old Camry, Corolla. These are very fuel efficient, reliable cars, and they're about 35% better for the environment than the cars our clients were in before. And we can prove that factually with information from the Department of Energy's website. Financial returns. This is a social impact investing enterprise that we have put together. We pay a 3% annual return to our investors fixed. Every December, I write checks to people who have put money in. It's largely families, family offices, individual investors. We now have some banks who are partners, some foundations who have invested with us. And our clients are building assets. We are saving them, if you think about this, the difference on a $15,000 car, which is our typical loan, of 24% interest versus our interest rate. Everyone pays the same no matter what their credit score. It's 9.75%. For our typical client, that's a 60% savings. That probably sounds very high to you if you're in the 2% world and can go borrow money at nothing. But our clients are overjoyed that they get this. And that leads them to have about $2,000 a year in savings just on interest expense alone. Plus, they're getting into a car that's going to hold its value. So by the end of their loan period, they've got something that has an asset that's worth something. They're also saving money on repairs costs because we have warranties on our cars. So there's a tremendous amount of savings. Next slide. Our program is not inexpensive, and we are now adding a lot of people, so it's getting more costly. My job is to go raise money, and it's not easy to do that for this, but it's going in the right direction. Its cost per client is coming down as a function of scaling. Next slide, please. So we're now helping about 1,000 families outside of the state of Texas at our goal for Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and Louisiana. Will be to help about 1,000 families in the next 3 years. We're growing and scaling, and it's an exciting time for us. Next slide, please. All right, so last thing I want to say that I skipped over really fast is that as we think about transportation, as we think about opportunity zones, being able to help somebody to get to work is critically important. Being able to help them to get to a place where they can take the very best job that they can get, not necessarily what's within walking distance of a bus stop, is critically important. But our lives are more, our transportation needs are more than just getting to and from our job. And I think this is where a lot of policymakers fall short, is we're only thinking about one thing. Well, if you've got kids, how many of us in here do? Mine are grown now, but soccer practice, getting them to and from school, getting them to a doctor, buying groceries on a bus is not an easy thing to do. So our lives and our transportation needs are complex, and there just isn't really anything anywhere that competes with having the freedom that comes from having your own car.
I believe we have time for questions, so if you guys can maybe take your chairs. And I guess I want to start the questioning process with Monique. You touched on a lot, but you didn't talk about your work around disaster recovery. And Lafayette has had its share of floods as well as the state of Louisiana. So can you kind of touch on Hurricane Harvey and your work there in Houston?
Yeah, thank you for asking about that. When Hurricane Harvey hit Houston about a little over a year and a half ago, we saw a lot of news articles that came out and said that there were as many as 1 million cars that were flooded in that storm. And we mobilized really quickly. We had never really done any sort of disaster mobility program. We came up with one, and we were down at United Way in Houston about 3 weeks after the storm. We have now worked with over 400 families and gotten over 100 people into decent transportation, made them loans. We came up with a special program to help reduce the financial burden of buying another car at a time when almost all of our clients that went through that program had lost everything. One of the things that we found was that there was a lot of resources for homeowners, but people who lived in apartments or mobile homes, there was nothing for them, and there was nothing available to cover the cost of a car. So trying to rebuild after an event like that without transportation, especially in a rural area. South Texas is a huge area. I've driven the entire part of the state that was impacted by this storm, and it takes a lot of time, 5 or 6 hours to go from one point to the other. So it was a really, really big deal. And interestingly, too, the one job opportunity that's really plentiful in the aftermath of a storm is construction. And trying to get to a job site without your own vehicle or hauling, materials or tools is just impossible.
Thank you. So, okay, Linda, I have a question for you also with, you talked about the new module, but train the trainer. And you refer to these, I guess the supplement that can assist with the training, but how are you guys providing assistance?
So depending on the need, there are train-the-trainer classes that's online. You can get them. They're not readily running, but there's a schedule of train-the-trainer classes. We do have specialists that will do train-the-trainers with a group of at least, I think the number is 15 to 20 people to get out there and do train-the-trainer. But what we have found is that for some people, it's easier to just go online and do the training, and that is available. If you have trouble getting that, you can always reach out to me, and I will point you in the right direction for that.
Any questions in the audience? Let's get the mic.
Okay.
The age group for your Money Smart, I know is it pre?
It's pre-K, actually pre-K to retirement. Mm-hmm. The most recent update is the Money Smart for adults, which is high school to college. But we do have, if you go to our website, you will find Money Smart for kids, Money Smart for teens, Money Smart for adults, Money Smart for small business, you name it. We have a Money Smart class for it. You give me a topic, I'll take it back to DC and see if we can come up with a Money Smart training for that. We want to make sure that people are well informed with the least amount of financial burden on them, but getting valuable information.
I love your program. I take it everywhere I go. Okay, so also I just have one thing for you. So you're going to add Louisiana when you revise your slides, right?
We've been pushing.
Yes. Yes. Okay.
I have a question about how you can, like I said, a lot of times you need a down payment when you're purchasing a car. Is that where the funding comes in, where you'll help them with that piece, or the banks? Is there like a contract, memorandum of understanding between these organizations as far as the cap on the prices, that type of thing, to help them to be able to afford the cars?
Right, it's a good question. So we have found that having the borrower save a little bit of money for the down payment is a really beneficial thing for them. It takes a little bit of time for our clients to go through our program. They have to have financial education. They have to work with their coach. And so we're encouraging them to save during that time because, one, we want to see that if their car payment is $275 a month, that they have the ability to put $275 a month away. So we think that's really important. In our Hurricane Harvey work, we had some grants from United Way and Foundation in Houston and the Rebuild Texas Fund to provide a little bit of down payment assistance for our clients. So sometimes we do that. The interesting thing is that a $15,000 car is affordable for a low-income person. We've actually worked with people that make as little as $18,000 a year. And it actually, when you factor in the cost of time, it's much more affordable for them to do that than anything else. Our coaches are going to work with those clients on an individual basis and figure out what their budget will allow, what do they need, and try to work with them. We don't put any caps on anything, and some clients actually can afford more. I think the highest loan we've done was about $26,000. So it can vary, but the average is 15. Yeah, it's important. Yeah.
I think David has a question.
Yeah, you said you do character-based lending. I was wondering how you evaluate that.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we look at credit, we pull a credit report, and we want to go through that with our clients. We want to establish a baseline, and it provides important information for us in our financial coaching to be able to talk to our clients about. But everyone pays the same. Obviously, we can't make a loan to every single person who would like one at 60% below what they would otherwise be paying. So we're looking for people who are as stable as can be. We like to see that they've been at their home and their job for a year. Just gives us a sense that they're going to be around a year later. Do they keep their appointments with their coach? Are they owning up to the mistakes that they made that led them to have a 480 credit score? Are they willing to do some things to change? Are they forward-looking, responsible, honest? Those are hard things to measure, but our coaches are spending some time working with people to try to get to that point. And it's a good system, I think. It rewards the right things, I think.
Okay, while she's getting the mic over there, Monique, do you require your, I'm sorry, Michelle, I don't know, it's behind me, Michelle.
It's okay.
Do you require your clients to have banking relationships?
We highly encourage them to do that. We have seen that people that have a banking relationship have done better. We also really like to review a bank statement with our clients. It provides a really interesting revelation, I think, for us about what their financial lives look like. So we do encourage it, and we have a lot of relationships with banks, so we can try to help clients find the right bank for their needs. We also routinely help them to understand if they're in the wrong type of bank account. Sometimes they just don't know that either, and we've tried to help them get the right type.
As I listened to Linda, as I listened to your presentation on financial literacy, financial training, coaching, one of the things that has happened, I'm the president of the Concerned Clergy of Monroe, and we were charged with the responsibility of determining what are the gap service needs in our communities after the 2016 floods. And one of the things that we discovered was that youth were impacted by the flood in a way that was not being addressed. And we found them moving from place to place, and they had a lot of shock, a lot of post-traumatic stress, and those types of things. So we developed a youth build program and a youth empowerment program. And we partnered with Grambling State University, where we signed a memorandum of understanding with Grambling to serve as our agency that would help us to determine what those gap service needs are, then to reach into federal and state funding streams to kind of help us mitigate the problem. So my question to you is that we've developed a program and it's implemented. It started back in November. And so the training aspect of it, how can we lean on you to help these youth? Because you got the Opportunity Zone credits that are there, and those opportunities are coming. And now we have these youth that are teenagers and about to approach an area where they will become bankable, and we need your help. And how can I interact with you to make sure we get that injected into our program?
Okay. So the normal process for this, because I actually do Money Smart training in many of the universities in Texas, and some high schools in Texas as well. What I would encourage is that your organization get trained on the Money Smart program so that you can set up the training classes for these students, because you're there, you're on the ground. You know, you can probably have more classes if people, and it not necessarily have to just be people in your organization, but people that want to be a Money Smart trained, so that the community will have resources. So it's the train the trainer. So I like to refer to it as each one reach one. You train a group of people who will then, and that's the whole idea of train the trainer, and they will train others. And before you know it, you have a community of individuals that are Money Smart trained that can go out there as needed in your churches, in your community centers, wherever, to bring this Money Smart classes to these students, because it's imperative. You know, I like to get them even at pre-K, because we do have information for those students, but when they get to high school, it's imperative that they understand money and the needs of it and how to use it. It's not just a swipe. Every time you swipe a card, money will be there. That would be great, because I'm a swiper, but it doesn't work that way. So I think getting them as early as possible, and especially when you're talking about those communities of individuals that would not otherwise have access to that. So we can talk, you know, offline a little more about how it works, but that's the concept of train the trainer.
I thought I saw another question. Yes, way at the top.
This is for Michelle. You mentioned that not everybody is going to get the loan through you who apply. So what is your time frame from application date until when they know if they're approved or not?
So more often than not, if there's a client that isn't going to get approved, they sort of self-select by opting out. They kind of know when their coach is asking them questions about their past that maybe they are not as motivated. It's much easier to go to a subprime tote the note lot guy and go in and pick something that's on the lot and be out the door the same day, even if it's very expensive. Our clients make the decision how long it's going to take. We've gotten people through in as short as 3 days. And we've had some clients that have stayed around for 2 years before they've decided they were ready to get their car. Average is 65 to 75 days is kind of the norm for most people.
So when they come in and say they're looking at a car this much, like $10,000, and you go through based on the interest rate and however the term of the loan, and you say this is going to be a $300 a month payment, so save this for so much time, and then after they've done that, then do they like meet one of the tests?
So it's actually, we actually do kind of the reverse of that. Rather than somebody coming in and saying, you know, I want this car or I can afford $10,000, the first step for them, and they do this through our online portal, is they upload all of their budget information themselves, and we have an initial screening. We are looking for a certain minimum income. Somebody that makes below $1,500 a month in take-home pay is probably too low income for us to work with right now. The last thing we want to do is set somebody up for more failure. And we tell them that immediately as soon as we've looked at it. But it may be that they filled out the form wrong, and we've had some of that too. So our coach will go through and then refine that budget with them. Generally, we're backing into what works for them. What kind of car do they need based on their family size, where their job is, what can they afford based on their budget. And then we decide what the car value is. It's generally built around what can they afford and what do they want and need. We also spend a lot of time talking people out of things they think they need. As an example, clients will come in, everybody comes in and wants a truck or an SUV, first of all. Everybody wants that. So we have to talk about, all right, that F-150's tire that you're going to replace 3 years from now is $500, and this Corolla tire is, $85. So let's talk about that first. Or things like, I've got to have a navigation system in this car, when what's on their phone is more current and better. They don't need to spend $1,000 to have the navigation system. We do a lot of that kind of thing with our clients too. It's value engineering what they think they need and what they really want.
Thank you.
We have a question, I think, way in the corner, up high.
Ms. Linda, are there any certain requirements for train the trainer, the course, and how long does it take to complete it?
So the only requirement is participants and a willing spirit. If you're willing to sit through the training and the online training, and I know previous to now you could take it in segments. I'm not sure if you sit there for 2 hours and take this training, if it's, you had to run it through, but previous to the update, you could do it in segments and come back and complete the training. I will find that out and let you know, but you just have to want the information, want to learn, and want to change. And you can go ahead and take the training.
Any other questions? Well, we have a question here.
First, thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Second thing is, I think you started the presentation with Tiffany. Tiffany, and I'm thinking there are 3 parts. Financial education, she gets a car, but then she goes on and she gets a house. What happens after you get the car? Do you continue to work with them to?
Yes. Thank you. That's a really good question. We stay with these clients through the life of their loan. We are the lender. We're a CDFI, and so we're working with them for 5 years. I just have a real soft spot for her. She's absolutely beautiful, and I have a big picture of her on the wall. I drag her to things all the time. Come speak to people because you're so amazing. Frankly, I'd like to hire her. She's really a good data analyst. But her life is going great, and some of our clients want to get a second car through us. Either they pay it off, or it just no longer fits their needs, and they want to trade to something else. And we're happy to do that with people, and happy for them to move on, to go become more credit worthy, and go get them a 2% loan somewhere else that they can do. So.
There's a great little state, North Louisiana, called Arkansas.
That's not Louisiana.
Duly noted.
So, Michelle, you brought about a good point. Do you report their payments to the credit bureau?
We do. We do. It took us a long time to get to where we had enough loans that we could do that. We're reporting to Experian. Hopefully we'll get to where we can report to all of them. And we are tracking improvements in credit scores too. So
That's great news. Okay. Any other questions from?
Ms. Gabrielle, do you know of Linda? Over here.
Oh, okay.
Do you? So this is obviously free, but I'm wondering if there would be more persons that would actually train, if there was any type of incentive given. Is there any type of grant opportunity that FDIC has that that they provide for trainers to train at all, or is it pretty much just all voluntary?
Yes, it is. Now, if who are you with?
So I'm with Forest National Bank,
Okay.
but I was really thinking of a nonprofit that I work with called the HBCU Community Development Action Coalition.
So if Wood Forest wanted to partner with this organization and provide incentives, that's fine. But FDIC wouldn't do that. They're not grant providers or incentives. Actually, we think our incentive is that it's free. So, but yeah, working a financial institution, which is a great relationship, working with one of those organizations and providing that, because some individuals need that incentive to sign up, even though their lifestyle says they need financial training, they need further assistance. So that's a good partnership.
Thank you to Wood Forest. We got a small grant from you all for Hurricane Harvey relief, so appreciate that.
See, so y'all do provide grants.